You know how people say, may I help you? Ask yourself, may I help myself? Give yourself permission to help yourself. Because if you're always thinking about making the change, but never doing anything about it, you're never going to see that change.
Well, good morning. It is finally Friday, and you all know what that means. What that means for those of you who are new to the Vibe Talk Facing the Lion podcast is that you have made it to Friday. And if you are here sharing with us conversation that's interactive, I want you to know that you are welcomed. We are Vibe Talk Facing the Lion podcast. Our line is 1-888-721-9260. Reach out, reach in. We're here for you. I was asked a question some time ago. Well, not that long ago. But why is someone always crying? What are you crying for? What are your tears about? As we think about our emotion, as we think about what we go through, what we've been through, our emotions can be expressed through our experience. Tears usually represent for me the need to release. How many of you right now need to release? The amazing thing about our tears, ladies and gentlemen, is we can have all kinds of tears. We're going to talk about tears and the challenges of facing tears through our emotions. Today's topic is, what are you crying for? Tears have a way of expressing sadness, grief, ecstasy, joy, pain. Can you list some other things that tears are for? Tears are individual and unique. Your tears may be different from my tears. We know that many people are tearing because of great losses, loss of a loved one, loss of pets, loss of uh, even jobs. But don't you worry. I want you to take something home today from this podcast on what are you crying for? You've heard many people say, don't cry or stop crying or dry your tears. Well, I want to let you know today's the day to challenge yourself to let your tears come. What are tears? How do we define them? I want you to think about your tears. Many people say that tears, as they help us to express emotions, can be triggered. How so? Have you ever watched a movie and you cried? Have you ever had something so joyful or have been so ecstatic, happiness just overflowed and you began to tear? As you have went to weddings, you have seen tears of joy. No one's going to tell you that they have tears of pain at the wedding. We all, as onlookers of both the bride and the groom, we have tears of happiness. Can you name your tears exactly at this moment? It is important to give our tears names. You see the what in our podcast today, what are you crying for, is actually what are the tears for? How many times have you heard or said, I don't know why I'm crying? I've been there. How about yourself, Trish? Have you done that?
Yes, I have.
Yeah. We need to find out what our tears are for. We need to feel at every instance in our life that we have reasons, going back to the what. Let's figure out what our tears are for. A lot of men have said, and we've done a podcast on men and their emotions. And one of the things that we posted was a man in his tears to show raw emotion. If you're a man, I want you today to know that it is okay to cry when you feel emotion. You feel sad, hurt, pain, joy. You feel the same thing that a woman might feel, and you can relate. Women who have been in birth pains have cried out aloud. So much so that you feel their tears. Here's what a man does not experience: childbirth. And as you hear that woman cry out loud, she begins, after that baby is born, and the first time that she or we, because all women can relate if you've ever given birth, the first time that you see your baby, what you've been carrying for 9 months, that little person, you cry tears of joy. I want to explain it to you like that because every woman that will listen to this podcast understands how our tears transforms very easily and without cue, as if it were part of a movie. If you watched a movie, then you know exactly what I'm talking about because people cry on cue. That's called acting. And they always give you a reason for why the character is crying. And you say, how do they do that? Right? But we have had the challenges of experiencing real tears, going back to the woman who's crying out in pain as she's giving birth. And then immediately after that baby is out of her womb, she begins to cry tears of joy. Isn't it amazing how that emotion does and how it changes and transforms as we challenge life? So today we are going to talk about tears because everybody can relate. Anybody who listens to this has cried. And for those of you who haven't cried, I challenge you on this finally. What I'd like for you to do is approach your tears with honor. Approach your tears with great confidence. For every tear that you have cried means that you are embracing or challenging or healing or letting go of pain. Do you remember the things that I said? Come a little closer. In a word, I've said they're challenges so that you understand that we've all cried sometime in our life. And the reasons why is because you standing there or sitting there, you have experienced life challenges. Some have broken you, not to the point of no return. Some have broken you so much that your tears fell unceasingly, and you have stood tall and said, those tears I cried in the past. Oh, I remember that because now I can take my tears and I can turn those tears into what is joy, what has been survival, what has made me strengthened. We're all at some point in our lives triggered by tears. Whether it's a Hallmark movie or something that has gripped us through tragedy and trauma. And yet there still remains others tears that we cry, loss of someone or something. And oh yeah, there are tears of ecstasy and great strides of love. Tears, deepest emotions. Some of us are wondering why? Why cry though? Get over those tears. How many of you have ever heard someone say that as if uncaring, unable? If you're able to cry, I want you to think about the last tears that you cried. Were they joyful tears or were there tears of sadness? And I want you to draw your tears and name them. For every tear that you cry, I want you to think about a jar that collects your tears. After all, God's inspired word, the Bible says that God collects your tears. Interesting that God's word would say that because obviously he cares about our emotions. So we as humans must view our tears just as important. How many times have you cried and someone says,
What's the matter? And your response is nothing as you wipe your eyes. Anybody? Because as you're listening to this podcast, I'd love to see your electronic hand. And the next time that someone asks you, why are you crying? You can now, because you've listened to this podcast, connect with yourself and not feel so challenged and be able to tell why you're crying. As we watched a movie, I asked my other half at the time, why are you crying? As we walked out of the movie. And he said, salt is in my eye. I knew that there was no salt in his eye. The movie that we had just seen, every person that came out of that movie was crying. Why? Because the movie was so emotionally packed that it affected men and women with pure, expressive emotion. So we all cry. But again, that question is, why do men try to hide that as if it's an ego trip? Because you see, men sometimes, and if there's any men listening, please call our 800 number. I'd love to hear from you. To ask, why do you cry? Tears are an open expression of emotion, and we do it so gracefully. No acting, real challenge of emotion. Let's talk about it for a moment because I think it's really important that we challenge ourselves with real tears. As you go back in your life, I want you to think about the last time that you cried. What was the last time that you cried? Yeah, you remember that time? And do you remember when you just couldn't stop crying? How many of us have been there where we cried uncontrollably, profusely? Yeah. Do you remember those times? Do you remember the times when you cried tears of joy? You were so happy that tears came. A strange thing about that emotion that brings us unfailing tears. Tears. We cry. Some of us are very emotional, while some of us hide our emotion. Which are you? Trish, which one are you?
Um, I'm the person that hides my emotions, but it eventually comes out anyways. That's the kind of person I am.
Yeah, all about emotions. Isn't it interesting that the tears that we cry, they eventually come out? I want to tell you something else about tears that we do. Something could have happened to us years ago, and we still cry. I can remember when something made me cry so much that every time I go back, I have the same emotion. And you might sit here and you might say, well, Miss Nisi, why would you do that when you train us about our emotion? Well, that's the point of Vibe Talk Facing the Lion podcast, is to embark on emotion, accept it, express it, acknowledge it, be aware of it. Because your tears are unique. Your tears are not the same as someone else's. Your tears are the very essence of your emotion. Let's see, we've talked about the powerful brain power we call it. Did you know that the brain sends a signal to react to your tears or to activate your tears? How many of you knew that? If you do, you're becoming smarter every day. See, that's the body's course of telling you, I need to cry. This was so sad. Or this was very joyful. You've ever heard someone say, I'm crying because I was so happy? Or how many times have you gotten a beautiful letter that has come in the mail and you were so touched by it? Or even now, just a simple text. Someone thought of you and it moved you to tears. I don't know about you, but I can tell you about me. Life has had its challenges. I've cried seeing babies born. I've cried when I laid my loved one to rest. I've cried profusely when I lost my firstborn nephew. Like nobody could stop that but Jehovah God himself. But I got through those tears. And let me tell you, it's not easy. Anyone who tells you to stop crying, to dry your tears, they may seemingly mean well, and that they do. But you don't have to stop crying until the brain signals you that you're going to heal. When my nephew was murdered, I honestly thought my tears would overtake me. And if any of you, give me a moment, if any of you have felt that kind of pain, there's no stopping the tears. Your body will just signal when it's ready. Tears are powerful. Tears are impactful. Tears feed your emotion. I remember miscarrying for the second time. And emotions were full. So full of that as I saw my ex-husband's face and how he was overwhelmed with emotion. And I'm going to tell you something, man. That was the first time I had ever seen my ex-husband cry. It was then that I knew that men feel emotion as well. See, a man has always been told, be strong. Did you know that tears represent strength? Because as you release those tears, that flow of tears has saved you from what could be the body getting sick, self destruction. It is a release of what you have held on to. Isn't it interesting how the brain works? Today, I bid you to challenge yourself. If today is a day of emotion for you, if this weekend brings you tears, then let them flow. Today's song is going to be by Tony Braxton, Let It Flow. That's our song for today. So what about those tears? We have what are tears of emotion. Tears. Sometimes when I'm under stress, I cry. Sometimes when we women, we go through times of the month, we go through our cycles, we go through birth and pregnancy, we go through so many different hormonal changes as a woman. God forbid that we have the strength to even have a baby. But did you know that tears are a natural painkiller? Yeah, that's right. They are a natural painkiller. Why? Because when you cry, don't you always feel better? Trish, what do you think?
I think so. When I cry, it does help me feel better. It's like, because I've experienced it before. Like, I've had a headache, and when I started to cry, it's like the headache it got better because maybe it was like a lot of emotions built up and it was like stressful. So, crying is like releasing that stress. So, yeah, like
Yeah,
breathing.
yes. Thank you for bringing that out about breathing. You ever hysterically cried? You know, there's a thing of hysterically crying, or excuse me, hysterically laughing, that you just could not stop laughing. Let let me bring you to something so that you kind of get a you guys all know that I'm a person that I like to draw a picture for you, even though I can't draw, but my words will draw the word picture for you. Remember when you were a kid and your parents were trying to be serious and you were with your siblings and you just started cracking up? How many of you have been there?
I have.
And your parents are trying to be serious. You know, if they say Aunt Martha died and you're in the middle with your sibling and they started hysterically laughing and your parents ask you, what is so funny? You know, I've watched my boys do it. I've done it with my sister that is 2 years over me, laughing hysterically. No one knows what the heck you're laughing at, but you are laughing hysterically. You can't control yourself, and God forbid you're anywhere embarrassing your parents, church, places of worship, you know, those times. Now, let's turn it around and talk about the hysterical crying. That you are so overwhelmed with emotion that you're crying, and that if someone dares to touch you, you say, don't touch me. Leave me alone. How many of you have been there?
I have.
Yeah. Where you just need it to cry. See, our need to cry means something significant. When we need to do something, we really must have the need to do it. And we're talking about in a healthy way. When you are at those leave me alone moments because you're hysterically crying and someone tries to comfort you and you don't want to be touched because you're so overwhelmed with emotion, let's notice these things about ourselves as we go. We think about our crying and how it is a healing process for us because no one ever died from crying. No one ever died from a fist full of tears. No one ever died. In fact, you are standing here because of those tears that you cried. Have you drawn your pictures of tears? Get creative to answer your question. Why? What are you crying? Tears. There are tears of joy. Talk about that. Tears are always an expression of our emotion. The key to knowing what that emotion is should be addressed. You know, sometimes people will say, "You're still crying about that? That's nothing to cry about." How many of you parents have ever said that to your children? I'm going to ask you today to go back. Maybe you need to apologize to your child for saying that because you know something, those tears that fell from your child's eyes were not pointless, were not meaningless, were not for nothing. And did you ever find out why that child is crying? Or as your child is running and playing or falls off of their bikes or skates or whatever it is that they're doing, and you say, "Get up, don't cry." How would you feel if you hurt yourself? Let the children cry because they are releasing emotion. We need to feel tears. I have cried so hard, ladies and gentlemen, that I remember crying and I wet up someone's shirt twice in my life. I remember. And you know, I can tell you exactly why. But they actually had to go and change the shirt because my tears were all over their shirt. I want you to be able to think about how a good cry reduces stress. Again, we don't get into medical things here because nobody's a doctor here. I am, though, a certified life coach, well, life and wellness. But now, when you think about reducing stress, sometimes you have to take a moment to cry. How about music? How many of you out there have listened to music that has made you cry? Anybody?
I
Trish, you
have.
make music. How does that make you feel when you cry?
When I listen to music and I cry, it makes me feel relieved. And also, it's like someone talking to you, expressing their emotions, and you're like, okay, somebody gets me. Like, a specific song that makes me cry is, oh my goodness. A specific song that makes me cry is the song from a Disney movie called Reflection in
Mm,
Mulan, because it's like she knows who she is and they're not understanding her, and I've been there. So
yeah,
so that song makes
yeah,
me cry. It makes me feel like somebody understands me and they're talking to you. So that's how it makes me feel.
yeah. How many songs have you all had that has made you cry? Trish, thank you for bringing us there because we get to talk about our tears. I cry every time I hear uh, Wind Beneath My Wings. I cry every time I hear Perfect. I cry every time I hear by Mariah some Indian I hear some Disney song. Emotion. You know, the questions that I just asked opens up a pathway for us to express our emotions. Some of us are feeling like we can express ourselves, but if you never could, you just did because we cry over things. When I go to Disneyland, did you guys know this? That I love Disney so much, I cry every time I go to Disneyland. Don't judge me because the vibe is so happy. The air is so free. People even go to Disneyland or Disney World when it's raining. And when I hear the wife say the happiest place on earth gets me every time. I love the vibe. So how about our happy tears? You remember a time when you were so happy you were crying because, oh my gosh, I'm so happy. Yeah. How many of you have ever cried at someone else's accomplishments because you watched them be challenged and they overcame challenges, right? I think about graduation time for so many ones. You will know how I feel about young people. And graduations are to be celebratory because there are occasions for sheer joy. Think about it. It's not an easy job for someone to get up every morning, go to class, wherever it is, school, college, even kindergarten, for God's sakes. gotta get up. You just gotta do it. And every morning you have done that throughout the school year. The year when the graduation comes, we celebrate you with tears of happiness. You did it, we say. I want you, if you've ever accomplished something, if you've accomplished something this week, it's okay for you and I to cry. It's okay for you and I to cry tears of pain. I don't know if I've ever told this story, and I think I believe that I expressed this story in one of our group sessions. And by the way, we will have that at 10:30 California time, 10 to 12. And if you are locals, we would love to have you come and be interactive with us. Feel free to stop by. It won't cost you anything. But if you're around the world, it's going to be right here live. Jump on board because it's a group session. Every person who attends will have a graduate certificate just for that program. And you can use that for things because this is a certified program. The story that I want to tell you is about a time that I cried tears of pain. And this time, this was physical pain. No, not of myself, but of someone else, my own child. He had hurt himself so badly that he had to have surgery to correct what was a torn and twisted, I don't even know what you call it. It was so bad. Ankle, yeah, from skateboarding, and it was ugly to look at. The day arose that we were faced with the challenge of him going into surgery, and any mom or dad knows if you could only do it for them, you would lie in that bed and take the surgery for them. That's where I was at with this on this morning. And he began to cry. And as he cried, he said, I don't want the surgery, Mom. I don't want to do this. And I cried, I don't want you to have it either, but you gotta have it. We were going back and forth with our tears. I'm still feeling that, guys. And as my friend who was with us, my papa, my honorary papa, he handed us both the Kleenex. Here I began to realize that we, yes, you and I, can have tears for someone else. I wasn't going through the surgery, but it was the fact that my child had to be challenged with this, and I'm challenged with, oh my God, I don't want my child to go through this. Guess what? We got through it. Do you know today, as you just saw, I still feel those tears. Tears are important. they are like a mark in our life, a stage in our life, a time in our life. So what are you crying about? What are your tears about? Sometimes I have been driving and have broken out into real tears and I've had to pull over. I remember a time when I was driving and this was going to be a great day for me, and I got a phone call or text. And listen, I was not driving and texting, and I don't recommend any of you to do this. And one of my dearest friends had just committed suicide. After your brain registers what you just heard, you begin to ask your brain what was just said. What was it that I just heard? And then your response is whatever it is. And I had to pull over, and I remember crying so hard. Yeah, going back to those. We want you to know that tears don't always have to be sad. Tears come from tears of happiness, tears of pure joy, beautiful tears, tears of beauty. We talked about achievement tears. My goodness, there are types of tears. What do you think? Start labeling a photograph, and it was so beautiful, or saw a picture and it was so beautiful that it made you cry. Yeah. Or have you ever saw a brand new baby and it's so precious? Actually, yeah, that's correction. So many people cry tears. We are not the only ones at the wedding that cry. How many of you have ever saw the bride and the groom cry as they say their vows? Have you ever saw that, Trish?
Yes, I've seen it before in videos.
Yeah. Been to many of weddings, and they cry, they exchange tears. So there are different kinds of tears. Or something caught you off guard, and it was and somebody gives you a bouquet of flowers and you start to cry. Are you crying because you think they're the most ugliest flowers? Or are you crying because they're the most beautiful flowers? And someone that you love very much thought enough of you to give you those beautiful flowers. Those are beautiful. beautiful tears. We talked about tears. Have you ever heard of crocodile tears? Yeah, what's the meaning of crocodile tears? If somebody's crying crocodile tears, because I heard that for the first time, that's not a good time. That's not a good thing. Crocodile tears are deep sadness. And I know someone who cried. A 5-year-old. My 5-year-old. Because we were moving around and he felt displaced. He didn't have his own place. He had to stay with someone. The teacher alerted me to those crocodile tears. Yeah, we cry crocodile tears. We cry tiny tears. We cry overwhelming tears. But each and every tear is worth it. We're going to be right back with. Don't go anywhere. Be right back.
Facing the lion is always positive. So as we are going to be facing our lions or challenges of the week. What did you face this week that was challenging? Change is hard for me because I'm not focused on me. So what do you need to change about that? You need to focus on yourself. How do we do that? We don't become blind to everything around us, but we have an incredible desire to help ourselves. You know how people say, may I help you? Ask yourself, I never do anything but change.
We're back with Trisha's Treasures. Trish?
So this week I have been grieving a loss of my cat, and um I've I tried to hold it in, and even in the process, I woke up in the morning, I thought, it's a good day. You know,
Okay. Repeat that because we just got cut out.
I was saying that my mom and my sister, they let me know what was happening. Um, they let me know that my cat was about to pass away. So in the process, I have been, I was pacing. I was, I went in the room where I do my music and I was pacing. I was walking around and then I was like, I'm not going to cry. And I sat down and I started doing my hair because I was like, to me before. So yeah, I'm numb to it because I've lost pets before. So usually I was numb to it. And I was doing my hair and suddenly my mind went from what hairstyle am I going to do as I'm loosening out my braids, what hairstyle I'm going to do to, wow, it's raining. Like, I don't want him to feel uncomfortable because it's raining. Like, I would like for it to be sunny for him, because that'll let me know that he's at peace. I began praying. I was like, God, like, because I looked at the weather and it was supposed to rain all day. And so I was like, God, can you please help it to be? I don't want my cat to in distress before he passes away. And in that process of thinking that, I started to break down. I started to cry. And I was like, I don't want him to feel uncomfortable. Like, started coming down. The tears, and I just sat there and I cried. And so after I was like, I can't walk in the kitchen to get coffee. My mom's in there and she's going to see something's wrong. So let me just put on a facade. And so I wipe my tears. I walk out the room. I go downstairs. I go to the kitchen. She's talking to my grandmother. And I go to the coffee maker, which is right behind her. So I'm like, yes, that's the cover up. She doesn't have to see me. And so she turns around. She's like, are you sad about Sai? And then I just broke down. That was it. And I was like, I tried to hold it in, but I couldn't. I really couldn't. And so my mom hugs me and I start sobbing, like a very deep cry. Like, I've told my mom this before. It's like if I'm crying and she gives me a hug, it's just everything comes out because I was like, Mom, that's a superpower that you have. And so she laughs
I'm
at it,
telling
but she understands. But yeah. So everything, I was crying very hard and um I was like, I'm gonna make my coffee and everything. And in the process, I didn't even feel like drinking it because it was like how you feel something in your gut, like everything you feel all the emotions and it goes to your gut and it's like this is happening. I have to accept that like this is happening. And even in the process, if you don't believe in God, that's your belief. But for me, I was praying for a miracle. It was like help him to feel better because he's been sick before, but not this sick. Just help him survive. I was praying for that, but sometimes it's the thing we need to do is to accept what's happening. And it's hard to do that. It's very hard. It was hard for me to accept that, yep, this is going to happen. I'm sorry, but this is going to happen. So I go back in the room and I'm like, okay, I need to get some tissue because I'm crying and things. And so I pass my sister. I'm like, let me hold my head down so she won't see me. And then she was like, Treasure, what's wrong? Okay. And wiping my eyes. And I go back and she's like, you're not fine. And she comes after me, and I go in the room. I run, hug me. I feel like that's all the and yeah. And so I feel it. The depression, I feel the sadness. And I'm sorry if this is dragging, but I just want to tell you guys how I'm feeling. So I was feeling the depression, I was feeling the sadness, and then I realized that yeah, this you're grieving. Now, sometime sometimes for me, it's some emotions are a new dawn, a new day for me because um I wasn't used to grieving like that. Like I've discussed with you guys before on one of our podcasts, that I didn't really grieve my grandma's passing until I hit 23, and she passed away when I was 14. So that's how I've been living grief for a while. I've been holding it, and then later on, it just comes out. And this time, it was different. And I feel like it was different because I allowed myself to grieve. I allowed myself to cry. Because before I wouldn't allow myself, I'm like, I'm not gonna cry. Like, this happens. I love them, but this happens all the time. So that's it. I try to be numb to it, but this time it was different. And you know what? I needed that cry. I really needed it. And today, this topic, I was like, in my brain, I was like, I don't know. Like, am I strong enough to be here for this topic? But the thing is, I just, I was like, maybe it's not being strong enough. Maybe it's like sort of, sort of speak. Like, maybe it's not that you need to push through it strong. Maybe it's like you need to you need to embrace that, yep, the right way. Like embracing your grace and patience, allow grieve. So that I've been doing this week. That's what I've been doing. I've been grieving properly in my way. I've been finally accepting the emotions and allowing myself to feel. So I say tell you I'm sorry, excuse me. I'm telling you guys my story because like you, everyone, well, for those who are afraid to cry and spread your emotions, um that becomes normal. It became normal for me. And as life went on and as I discovered myself, as I learned that, you know what, it's okay to feel, it becomes abnormal. It became abnormal for me. Like, okay, okay, all right, so this is how I'm supposed to feel. But before I hid that, and now I know that it's okay to show it. So it's time for me to accept and feel. Just feel free to feel. And that's what I've been doing. So I hope for those of you who have tears to cry, I hope that that gives you relief. It helps you breathe, and that gives you your reassurance and understanding that, yep, this is what I'm feeling, and the acceptance. And I hope that you find the peace afterwards. Vibe Talk, Facing the Lion podcast. Vibe Talk, Facing the Lion podcast.
Lion Power. Thank you so much. We want you to know that every story that we tell on our Finally Friday are not made up stories. We love to challenge you all with emotions. And Trish just had that experience with her cat passing away. And we all want to send her our love and our sympathy and empathy. I don't own a cat, but I can still feel for a person who has a cat that loves their cat. So let's be gentle with one another and not judging. Uh, Also, as we leave our Friday challenge of what are you crying for, I want to leave you with this thought, and it's a beautiful thought. And it says, the most expensive liquid in the world is a tear. It's 1% water and 99% feeling. Everybody get that? We all have shed tears. Let's show humanity. And the next time, let's turn to someone who we see cry. Perhaps asking ourselves first, what are you crying for? What are others crying? We want to talk about this. Yeah, this will be on our Finally Fridays playlist. It's up now. I want to say, through Trisha's grief, that Trish put together so nicely our Friday challenges. Why did we pick those to pull up? Because we think and we know that you'll benefit from it. Listen to Trisha's treasures. Uh, Support her on our YouTube page. I learned so much from you, Trish. Learned so much from you, and thank you. Uh, and we do, honestly. My heart goes out to you, and I do share tears with you because I know that that's something special to you. So let's feel how others feel. Let's put ourselves in their place. Just because we have to wait another week for Finally Friday, you can interact with our podcast. If you see it, please talk about your experience. Was it helpful to you, Trish, to be able to talk about it, your tears of grief?
Yes, it was very helpful for me.
And that's why we encourage you guys, please, to support us, support the groups, because we get together and we all talk about things that are relatable. 10:30, just shortly here, we will come on live and you'll be able to hear another group 5. Last week we didn't have group 5 because I lost my office keys, but I found them. Let's hear what you have to say. We thank you for being with us. It's been a long week. If you want more of us, you can hear our Vibe Talk After Dark radio show where we play music. Music is part of our healing. Yeah. Please support the Healing Center by way of donation. Any small donation helps. Anything helps to keep Vibe Talk, uh, the Healing Center running. It's an actual in-person center. So if you want to donate, go to our page. It'll also be in the comments below. Thank you so much to my amazing co-host Trish, and thank you as the audience for adding our podcast, Vibe Talk Facing the Lion podcast. You can now even stream it on iHeartRadio and make it your favorite podcast. We'd love it if you did. Thank you, and have a great weekend. We'll see you next time.
Facing the lion is always positive. And so I ask you today, as we are going to be facing our lions or challenges of the week,